All right, Shalom Israel. First and foremost, as always, I would like to give all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakaha, Kwadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth and sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return, and double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And Lord's will, this is not going to be a long video at all. The name of this video is going to be called, and in his mouth, and he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Okay, now we mentioned this a couple of times before in the past. When I say we, I speak of, us here at Great Millstone, where in the latter days, which we're living in the last days, there will be a great mouth. There will be a mouth given to these Edomites, the Edomites, which is the self-proclaimed white man, starting with the so-called elites who call themselves Rothschilds, trickling down to the rest of their nation of people. Starting with the Rockefellers, trickling down to the rest of their nation of people. And in the latter days, when these people would rise up into power, they would have the ability to speak blasphemies and great things against the Most High, Yahweh, against his tabernacle, and against his son, his anointed, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, and against the angels in heaven. And this is all part of the counsel of the wicked to mislead, to deceive, and to throw people of the world off. Especially to throw them off from the truth. Now, the Bible tells you, just come over here real quick. If we go to the book of Ezekiel, the first chapter, Ezekiel gave an account of what those beings look like that travel around in what the world calls UFOs. He gives you an account. Ezekiel chapter 1, and we'll just start here. Because the self-proclaimed white man has deceived the world into believing that the beings that travel around in what the world calls UFOs look like green, little tall, slender green guys with large black eyes and a slender nose and no lips. Okay, and that's not what the beings look like that travel around in what the world ignorantly calls UFOs. Ezekiel 1 verse 1. Now it came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives in the river of Kibar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of Yahweh. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity, the word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Uzai, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Kibar, and the hand of the Lord was there upon him. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north. Now, when it says a whirlwind here, okay, I'm not sure what the Hebrew word is here for whirlwind, But this whirlwind, okay, it says Rakha, okay, Rakha, which the Hebrew word for spirit is Rakha, but the Hebrew word for wind or whirlwind can also be Rakha. And you also got Rayach here, Rayach, which is the root word, okay? And you see, what do you see? You see wind, breath, mind, spirit. And your mind is where your spirit dwells at, because we are all spirits and bodies, okay? Okay. But the um the vehicles, what the world ignorantly calls UFOs, those are spiritual vehicles, okay? Those are not vehicles made by man's hands. So, it's really, really easy to not believe the devil, which the word devil means deceiver, when he says that a UFO crashed into the earth and now we gotta, put big ass cinder blocks around it to ensure that the area is not being investigated by civilians. And shut the fuck up. You sound real fucking stupid. And furthermore, these spiritual vehicles that these beings travel in could never crash into the earth. How the fuck is a UFO going to crash into the earth when they can teleport, they can open portals and go into different dimensions? They can land on the sun, fly around the sun. They can land on the moon, around the moon. You know, they could do backflips and all kind of insane aerial maneuvers. How the fuck are they going to crash into the earth? Okay? They could disappear, reappear. They can these spiritual vehicles can disguise themselves as birds, clouds in the sky, stars. How the fuck are they gonna crash into the earth? They can't. These vehicles were not made by man's hands. Now airplanes will crash into the earth. Jets will crash into the earth. Hell, even helicopters will crash into the earth. You know why? Because those are carnal vehicles made by man's hands. So, and I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north. Now, this whirlwind right here is a metaphor for what the world calls a UFO. So, what Ezekiel is witnessing here is what the world ignorantly calls a UFO. So, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud. Now, just real quick, let's open up another window here, okay? And let's go to the book of Psalms. So, he said a great cloud, right? Okay, the book of Psalms, chapter 104, and now to start at 2. Okay, who covers thyself with light as a garment? Who stretcheth out the heavens like a curtain? Who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters? Now, the waters is talking about what the world calls outer space, because Esau would tell you it was outer space. It's a vacuum out there. Nah, nigga, there's waters up there. Okay? There's waters up there in the midst of the stars or where the sun and the moon is. There's waters up there. Yes, the same waters we drink here on earth. There's waters up there. Why do you think the stars and the sun and the moon is so luministic? Okay, well when light shines through water, it becomes more luministic than it usually is. Okay, in the book of Genesis, it tells you that the waters were separated when the heaven and when heaven and earth was being created. The waters that was on the earth was separated from the waters that was above the earth. Now let that sink into your head for a second. But anyways, okay. It says, who laid the beams of his chambers in the waters. Okay, it's talking about the heavens, what the world ignorantly calls outer space, right? Who maketh the clouds his chariot. You see that? Now, in Ezekiel, the first chapter, right? he said that Ezekiel said that he saw a whirlwind come out of the north, a great cloud. Now, here in the book of Psalms 104, verse 3, okay, this was a question that was being asked, okay? Who maketh the clouds his chariot? Now, let's go into the word chariot here, okay? Who maketh the clouds his chariot? Because there's a point that I want to make here. Okay, the Hebrew word there is rakawab. Rakawab. Okay, it's rakawab. Okay, rakawab. And we see chariot, right? But when you scroll down into Strong's definition, okay, what do you see? A vehicle. So those so-called UFOs, which these beings travel in, okay, they're known as clouds in the Holy Scriptures. The Holy Scriptures will refer to them as clouds sometime. So who maketh the clouds his vehicle? So these so-called UFOs are known as clouds in the Holy Scriptures. They are referred to as clouds in the Holy Scriptures sometimes. And then to finish up in Psalms 104, verse 3, who walketh upon the wings of the wind. Okay? So if we come back over here, right? Did Ezekiel actually see a great cloud or some big puffy clouds up in the sky? No. He saw a vehicle and it looked like a so-called UFO. Okay? So these so-called UFOs can also be known as whirlwinds. They can also be called clouds. Okay? It says, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it. Because those so-called UFOs are bright. Okay, you ever see them pass through the night sky? Sometimes at high speed. I've seen it happen twice since I've been in the truth. Okay, they literally look like bright shooting stars. Okay, and they can become so bright that it'll light up the whole night sky. Okay, and out of the mist thereof, as the color of amber. Amber is another word of saying gold. Another way of saying gold. Out of the midst of the fire. Also, out of the midst thereof came the likeness of four living creatures. So now Ezekiel is giving you the description. Ezekiel is giving you the description of what these creatures look like that came out of these so-called UFOs. And we say so-called UFOs because we know what those vehicles are. They are the chariots of Israel. And again, when you go into that word chariot, it's rakawab, which means a vehicle. So those so-called UFOs are the vehicles which the Lord's angels travel in. And this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Okay? So they had eyes, they had ears, they had hair, woolly hair. Okay? They had the big lips. Okay? They had a nose, two eyes, eyebrows. They had mustaches. They had beards. Some might have had goatees. Okay? They had hands, arms, thighs, legs, feet, toes. Okay? So they had the likeness of a man. And everyone had four faces. And everyone had four wings. Okay? It says, and their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet like the sole of a calf's foot, meaning they had on ninja boots. Okay, that's what it means by calf's foot. They had ninja boots on. Okay, and they sparkled like in color of burnished brass. That is going into their skin complexion. So they had brown skin. Now, when it said they had four faces, in other words, each of them had a face because they had the likeness of a man, okay? It was four creatures. Each of them had their own face, okay? And they had the hands of a man under their wings on their four sides. And they four had their faces. Okay, see, and they four had their faces and their wings. Their wings were joined one to another. Okay, they turned not when they went everyone straight forward. Okay, as for the likeness of their faces, they four had the face of a man. See, they four had the face of a man. So you can only picture what a black man looked like, right? Because they sparkle like in color to burnished brass. And we know what color burnished brass is. It is a very dark brownish color. So they look like so-called Negroes, or they look like Negroes, the Negro man, if you will. Okay, so they had a woolly mustache, a woolly beard, and woolly hair. Okay. Okay. And the face, it says, and the face of a lion. Now, does that mean that they look like a lion? No. It just means that they had a terrifying look about them. You look at a lion, you're gonna be terrified. Because yeah, anyone who encounters a lion, how you gonna escape from a lion? Okay, a lion can run damn near as fast as a car. Okay, so if a lion pounces on you, you're through, man. You're through. Okay, so in other words, they had a terrifying look about them. Okay, so the look they had was dreadful. So they had the face of a lion on the right side, and they four had the face of an ox on the left side. Okay, and a ox is a a a sign of an ox will be a sign of strength or firmness. So they had a strong, firm look about them. Okay. Okay. They four also had the face of an eagle. Yeah. Eagle represents pride. Okay. Okay. So it says, thus were their faces, and their wings were stretched upward. Okay, two wings of every one were joined one to another, and two covered their bodies. Okay, and they went every one straight forward whither the spirit was to go. Okay, there goes that word spirit again. Okay, they went, and they turned not when they went. Okay, as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire. Okay, like you ever watch like Dragon Ball Z, how like they have those auras around them? That's what it's talking about. They had like these powerful looking auras around them. Okay, and the appearance, it says, and like the appearance of lamps. Okay, you know, I'm trying to think. Dragon Ball Z, Hunter x Hunter, how they have like those auras around their bodies, and you see like flashes of electricity and like a powerful looking mist going up towards the air. Okay, surrounding their bodies. This is what Ezekiel is seeing here. It went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. See? Okay. And the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. Okay, that's some terrifying power there, man. And the angels are dreadful, man. The angels are dreadful. Now, as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with his four faces. Okay. Now, it said it said the wheel, right? Now the wheel is going into the appearance of the UFOs. Just real quick, let's go to Bing.com, okay? And let's type in UFO. No, we're gonna go to images. Okay. Now let's go back here real quick, okay? So now Ezekiel is going into the description of the UFO, what the world calls a UFO. So Ezekiel is about to describe what the UFO looked like, what their UFO looked like. It says the appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of a beryl. Beryl is a very beautifully greenish color. You ever seen like a beryl stone? You'll see what I mean. It says, and they four had one likeness in their appearance, and their uh, 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 work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. Now, if you look at what the world calls a UFO, okay, it literally looks like a wheel within a wheel. Okay, and I'm gonna just show a couple of pictures here. Okay, doesn't it look like a wheel within a wheel? Okay, see, you got the outer layer, right? And like you got the upper part, right? And then you got the bottom part. The upper part and the bottom part will be the wheel, right? And then you got the middle piece right here, which is also another wheel. See? The Holy Scriptures don't lie, man. This is your example of a wheel within a wheel. Okay? Let's see if I can find another one. I think it's exit out. Let's see. Okay, here's another one. Okay, a wheel within a wheel. Okay, see that? You got the upper part right here, which looks like a wheel, and you got the bottom part right here, which looks like a wheel. Wheel within a wheel. But there was this one image I found that was astonishing. It was like the perfect description of what I saw. Okay, a wheel within a wheel. You got one part of the vehicle that turns one way, and then you got another part of the vehicle that turns in the opposite direction, which is how you're able to tell that it looks like a wheel within a wheel. Come on, man. You go the devil at fucking work again. Okay. Here's another good example of a wheel within a wheel. Okay, I already showed that one. Okay. A wheel within a wheel. So now we come back over here, right? Ezekiel 1 verse 17. When they went upon their four sides, and they turned not when they went, right? Because the UFOs can turn in any direction. They can go up and they can immediately ascend and descend. They can go left, right, zigzag, front, back, They can move in any direction, okay? As for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful, okay? Their rings, and you see that on some of these so-called UFOs, okay? You'll see like rings on them. Like see how you see like the rings underneath this one? Okay, it says, and their rings were full of eyes round about them four. And the rings is talking about the windows. Like you see these lights up here? The eyes, those are the windows. Okay, it's not talking about actual eyes like human eyes, okay? The eyes is really a metaphor for the windows to these spiritual vehicles. Okay, the rings were full of windows. You see? Okay, and when the living creatures went, the wheels, meaning the UFOs, went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Okay, it says, whither the spirit was to go, they went, thither was their spirit to go, and the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels that what was in the so-called UFOs. So that's let me read this. When those went, these went. When those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted from the earth, the wheels were lifted over against them. For the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. So the creatures that came out of these so-called UFOs during Ezekiel's time, okay, was described as sparkling, okay. They had the appearance of a man, right? And they sparkled like in color the burnished brass, meaning these angels, because these are angels of the Lord, these angels which came out of these vehicles, what the world calls UFOs, okay, they were a very dark brownish color. Okay. And you know that these men had had facial hair because they're men. So you know they had a woolly mustache, a woolly beard, and they had woolly hair. Okay. So when you read the description of what Ezekiel saw here, does it match what the so-called white man presents to you? No, it don't. That's not the color of burnished brass. Okay. And the Bible says that they had the likeness of a man. Where's the ears at? Where's the eyebrows at? You know? Where's the eyelashes? They had the appearance of a man, right? Shouldn't they have shouldn't this thing have eyelashes? You know? In any case, this is not what the angels of the Lord look like. The angels of the Lord, which travel around in what the world ignorantly calls UFOs, they look like so-called black men. And I say so-called black men because there's no such thing as a black man. Okay? You see this suit that Donald Trump got on? That's black. Ain't nobody on the planet that color. Okay? We are different shades of brown. We are not black men. So you can shut the fuck up with that social construct of bullshit. Black and white men. Donald Trump is not even white. He's red. Look at him. He looked like he can get angry and turn red at any given moment. But anyways, okay. The uh the Holy Scriptures tells you what the creatures look like that travel around in what the world calls UFOs, okay? They are described as looking like Negroes. The Negro man, okay? Okay, like you look at Rick Ross, they look like Rick Ross, okay? Like you see Tupac, they look like Tupac, except they actually have hair on their head, okay? Okay, you see Drake, okay? They look like Drake, except much darker, okay? You see Mike Tyson, they look like Mike Tyson, okay? You see I'm trying to think of some other men. Let me see, okay? You see David Banner, they look like David Banner, okay? They're really mean and austere looking. And they don't play around either. Let's go to Revelation, okay? Because John the Revelator prophesied of these Edomites, how in the latter days they will come speaking blasphemy. Revelation 13, verse 4. And they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Able to make war with who? Yahawashai. And you see, this is also a form of making war with Yahawashai. Because when you present an image like this, you're gonna have people thinking that when Yahawashai returns, it's gonna be creatures looking like this that's gonna be piloting what the world calls UFOs. And they're gonna be going around attacking people, and it's gonna be an invasion of the aliens, and we got to do something. And you see, so this is an example of these Edomites making war against the Messiah of the Holy Scriptures, because the Holy Scriptures tells you that when the Messiah returns, he's coming back in what the world calls a UFO. Revelation 1 verse 7. But before I read that, let's read verse 1. Revelation 1 verse 1, the revelation of Yahawashai. Now, when you go into the word revelation, the word revelation means to reveal. So what is this going into? This is going into the revealing of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. And then, of course, when you scroll down to verse 13 and 15, okay, the Messiah is described as a very dark brown skinned man with woolly hair, okay? And his eyes was red because he was a wine bibber, okay? A lover of wine. I love wine. Wine is my most favorite drink. Okay, I love drinking wine. But Let's read verse 7. So it not only goes into the appearance of the Messiah, but it also goes into how the Messiah is going to return in the last days. So Revelation 1 verse 7, behold, he, the Yahawashai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, he cometh with clouds. Behold, Yahawashai cometh with clouds. Now remember what I read in Psalms 104 verse 3? Okay, who maketh the clouds his chariot. So when the Messiah returns, he's coming back in what the world calls a UFO. And when you go to 2nd Esdras, the 13th chapter, it describes what his so-called UFO looks like. Okay, it was so huge that Esdras could not see the beginning nor the end of it. So basically, the whole entire sky looked like the Messiah's so-called UFO, his chariot. No matter what region of the sky that you look at, all you're going to see is the Messiah's so-called UFO. Okay, so that's why the Bible also tells you, the Holy Scriptures tell you that the sun shall withdraw its light, and the moon shall not put forth her shining, and the stars shall not hence shine forth, because the Messiah is going to black out the sky with his chariot, what the world calls a UFO. Okay, so behold, he Yahawashai cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, because his return is going to be broadcasted all over the news, like how they show you in some of these movies, like Independence Day. Okay, and they also which pierced him, reincarnation, right? The same Edomite Romans that pierced our Messiah in his side after he died on the cross, right? 2,000 plus years ago, they're back here today. And according to biblical prophecy, they're going to see the Messiah when he returns. And oh boy, is Yahawashai going to get them. Yahawashai is going to put his foot in their ass. I got to say it like my man Debo from next Friday. And when I find you, I'm going to put my foot in your motherfucking ass. Okay, hey, Yahawashai is going to put his foot in you motherfucking devil's asses. Okay? Okay, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, Aman. And the reason why they're going to wail because of him is because, again, when he returns, they're going to think that it's an alien invasion. And why are they going to think that? Because of images like this. So when we go to Revelation 13 verse 4, right? Okay, they say, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Make war with who? Make war with Yahushua. Because you see, when the Messiah returns, just real quick, let's go to Isaiah 66, verse 15. Okay, Isaiah 66, verse 15. For behold, the Lord, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahawashai, will come with fire. What fire? The fire that's going to come from them from the chariots, what the world ignorantly calls UFOs. Because when Yahushua returns, he's coming back to slay. He's coming back to kill, to put people to death. All right? Which means that when the Messiah returns, he's going to be shooting laser beams on people, which is going to be pure concentrated fire. People's going to be getting melted, turned into ashes, getting beaten to powder, like it tells you in 2nd Esdras 16, the 16th chapter, who who won't be beaten to powder at his presence, okay? For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, and with his chariots, because when the Messiah returns, he's coming back in the chariot, what the world calls a UFO. And he's going to be in the most humongous so-called UFO when he returns, because he's going to be accompanied with Michael the Archangel, okay, in which he's returning in what the world calls a UFO, okay? Okay, and Yahushua is going to be accompanied with the innumerable angels, which are also going to be in what the world calls UFOs. Okay, so the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind to render his anger. Right, Psalms chapter 7 verse 11. Okay, Yahweh judgeth the righteous, and Yahweh is angry with the wicked every day. Okay, so what do you think he gonna do? He gonna beat you motherfuckers to powder. No, I just pray that I'm of the elect, because I hope I'm of the elect, because I do not want to face the Lord's fury. Okay, hey, I don't want no smoke over here with the Heavenly Father. Okay, so and you know, if you're of the elect, you know, you should you should be praying for the Lord's mercy too. Okay, it says and to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. You see that? The slain of the Lord shall be many. So there you go. That's why people are going to be wailing when Yahweh when the Messiah Yahweh returns, because when Yahweh returns, he's coming back to slay. So let's read verse Revelation 13 verse 5. Okay, it says, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things. There was given unto these Edomites a mouth speaking great things. And here's your example of them speaking great things, man. They're telling the people of the world that this is what the creatures look like that travel around in what the world calls UFOs. Okay, and when the Messiah returns and what the world calls a UFO, he gonna look something like this. This is what these devils are saying, which the word devil means deceiver. Okay, but that's what these devils are saying. Okay, so there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. All right, with that I'm gonna say shalom. Is on to the next one.